What happens when one of the most talked about women in the world walks onto a late night talk show and transforms a friendly chat into an absolute nightmare? In just 34 seconds, a single comment would ignite a fire that nobody could put out, leading to the most shocking moment in British television history. Jonathan Ross sat in his chair that evening, ready for what should have been another standard interview. The studio lights were hot, the audience was buzzing with excitement, and everyone was waiting for the guest who had dominated headlines for months. Meghan Markle walked out to massive applause, waving at the crowd with that practiced smile she had perfected over the years. Jonathan stood up to greet her, extending his hand in welcome. She took it briefly, barely making eye contact before settling into the guest chair. Already, something felt off. The host tried to break the ice with his usual charm. "Welcome, welcome. We are absolutely thrilled to have you here tonight," Jonathan said, his voice warm and inviting. Meghan looked at him with a thin smile. "Well, I suppose someone had to book me." The audience laughed nervously. Jonathan, being the professional he was, chuckled along. "Oh, I think every show in the country would have you. You have been quite the topic of conversation lately." "Topic of conversation," Meghan repeated, her tone sharp. "Is that what we are calling it now?" Jonathan shifted in his seat, sensing the tension, but pushing forward. "I just mean that people are fascinated by you, by your story. I think our audience would love to hear more about your recent projects." "My recent projects," she said coldly. "You mean the things I have actually accomplished? Or are we going to spend this entire interview talking about gossip and tabloid nonsense?" The host raised his eyebrows, clearly taken aback. "Well, no, of course not. I have genuine questions about your work. I always do my research before a guest comes on." Meghan crossed her arms. "Do you? Because it seems like every interviewer I sit down with has already made up their mind about who I am before I even open my mouth." Jonathan leaned forward, trying to remain pleasant. "I promise you, I have not made up my mind about anything. I am here to have a conversation, to let you share your side of things." "My side of things," she said with a bitter laugh. "As if there are sides. As if truth is some kind of debate." The audience was completely silent now. People were looking at each other, wondering if this was some kind of act, or if they were witnessing something genuinely uncomfortable. Jonathan cleared his throat. "Right. Well, let us start fresh then. Tell me about your latest charity work. I know you have been involved with several organizations that focus on women's rights." Meghan stared at him for a long moment. "You know what is interesting about that question, Jonathan? It is always about charity work, is it not? Never about my actual capabilities, my intelligence, my vision. Just the safe, expected things that women are supposed to do." Jonathan blinked, genuinely confused. I did not mean it that way at all. I think charity work is important, and I wanted to highlight the good you are doing." "The good I am doing," she repeated mockingly. "Like I need your validation. Like I need you to tell your audience that I am acceptable, because I do charity work." The host took a deep breath, clearly trying to maintain his composure. "Meghan, I think there might be a misunderstanding here. I am not trying to validate you or judge you. I simply want to talk about the things you care about." "Oh, now you care about what I care about?" Her voice was rising. "Minutes ago, you were talking about gossip and headlines. Which is it, Jonathan? Do you want substance or scandal?" Jonathan looked directly into her eyes, his own patience starting to wear thin. "I want whatever you want to talk about. That is how interviews work. The guest shares what they are comfortable sharing, and I ask questions to help guide that conversation." Meghan laughed again, but there was no humor in it. "Help guide the conversation. That is rich. You mean you want to control the narrative, just like everyone else?" The audience was getting uncomfortable. A few people coughed. Someone whispered to their friend. Jonathan could feel the whole thing slipping away from him, and he had no idea why. "Look," he said, his voice firm but still respectful, "I am not trying to control anything. You are the guest. You have the floor. Please, tell me what you want to talk about." Meghan tilted her head, studying him. "What do I want to talk about? I want to talk about how people like you make a living off of dissecting people like me. How you invite us onto your shows, pretend to be friendly, and then turn around and let your audience tear us apart." Jonathan's jaw tightened. "That is not what happens on this show. I have always treated my guests with respect. You can ask any one of them." "Respect," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Is that what you call it? Because from where I am sitting, this feels like an interrogation." The host spread his hands out. "I have asked you 2 questions, both of which were meant to be complimentary and open-ended. I have not interrogated you about anything." "Not yet," Meghan shot back. "But we both know where this is heading. You will ask me about my family, about my choices, about all the things that people love to judge me for." Jonathan leaned back in his chair, visibly frustrated now. "I was not planning to ask you about any of that unless you brought it up first. My questions were all prepared around your work, your advocacy, and your future plans." "Your questions," she said dismissively. "Your agenda. Do you see the problem yet, Jonathan?" The host stared at her, genuinely at a loss. "I truly do not understand what is happening right now. Did I say something to offend you before the cameras started rolling? Because if I did, I apologize. But I have no idea what it was." Meghan stood up suddenly, her movement sharp and aggressive. "This is exactly what I am talking about. The minute someone pushes back, the minute someone does not play along with your little game, you act confused and innocent." Jonathan remained seated, his voice calm but firm. "I am not acting. I am confused. You came onto my show, and from the moment you sat down, you have been hostile and accusatory. I have done nothing to deserve that." "Done nothing," she repeated, her voice loud enough now that the audience flinched. "You have done nothing. That is the problem, Jonathan. People like you never think you have done anything wrong." The host finally stood up as well, matching her energy. "People like me? What does that even mean? I am a talk show host. I invite interesting people onto my show, and I talk to them. That is my job. And I am good at it because I treat people with kindness and respect." Meghan pointed at him. "Kindness and respect? You do not even know what those words mean. You think putting on a smile and asking prepared questions makes you a good person?" Jonathan's face was flushed now, his voice rising to match hers. "I think showing up to work every day, treating people well, and trying to create entertaining television makes me a professional. And I think walking onto someone's show and attacking them for no reason makes you incredibly rude." The audience gasped. Nobody expected Jonathan Ross to fight back like that. He was known for being easygoing, for rolling with the punches, but clearly something had snapped. Meghan's eyes went wide. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," Jonathan said, his voice steady now. "You have been rude since the moment you sat down. I gave you every opportunity to steer this conversation wherever you wanted it to go, and instead, you chose to attack me personally." "I am not attacking you," she insisted, though her tone suggested otherwise. "I am calling out the system that you represent." Jonathan shook his head. "No, you are attacking me. You are standing on my stage, on my show, in front of my audience, and you are accusing me of things I have not done. If you have a problem with the media, fine. But I am not the media. I am one person, one host, trying to do a job." Meghan crossed her arms again. "And I am one person who is tired of being treated like a commodity. Tired of being picked apart and analyzed and judged by people who do not know me." "Then why did you come on the show?" Jonathan asked, his voice softer now, but still pointed. "If you hate this so much, if you think I am part of some terrible system, why did you agree to be here?" She paused, clearly not expecting that question. Because I thought maybe, just maybe, this would be different. Jonathan sighed, running a hand through his hair. It could have been different. It should have been different. But you decided how this was going to go before you even walked out here. That is not true, Meghan said, but her voice lacked conviction. Is it not? Jonathan challenged. Because from where I am standing, you came here with an agenda. You wanted to make a point, to call someone out, and I just happened to be the person sitting in this chair. Meghan's face flushed. You do not know anything about me or what I have been through. You are right, Jonathan agreed. I do not, and I was trying to learn, trying to give you a platform to share your truth, but you would not let me. You turned this into a fight before it ever had a chance to be a conversation. The tension in the studio was unbearable. The audience did not know where to look. The producers were likely panicking in the control room, and the two people on stage were locked in a standoff that nobody knew how to resolve. Meghan took a step toward Jonathan. You want to know the truth? The truth is that I am exhausted. Exhausted from being polite, from playing nice, from pretending that everything is fine when it is not. Jonathan's expression softened slightly. Then say that. Say you are exhausted. Say you are frustrated. But do not take it out on me when I have done nothing to hurt you. You have not done nothing, she insisted. You are part of this machine, whether you want to admit it or not. The host shook his head. I am not a machine. I am a person. A person who wakes up, goes to work, and tries to make people laugh and think and feel something. If that makes me part of a problem in your eyes, then I am sorry. But I disagree. Meghan stared at him, her eyes blazing. Of course you disagree. You benefit from this system. You do not have to face what I face every single day. Maybe not, Jonathan conceded. But that does not mean I am your enemy. And it does not give you the right to treat me like I am. She opened her mouth to respond, but seemed to think better of it. Instead, she turned to the audience, addressing them directly. Do you see this? Do you see how quickly they turn it around? How they make you feel like you are the problem? Jonathan stepped forward. I am not turning anything around. I am defending myself against unfair accusations. That is not manipulation. That is basic human decency. Meghan whipped back around to face him. Basic human decency? That is laughable coming from someone in your position. What position is that, exactly? Jonathan demanded. The position of someone who worked hard to get where they are? The position of someone who tries to use their platform for good? What am I guilty of? Privilege, Meghan spat. Ignorance. Complicity. The host threw his hands up. Those are just words. Accusations without evidence. You are labeling me without even knowing me. I know enough, she said coldly. Jonathan took a deep breath, trying one last time to salvage something from this disaster. Okay, let us start over. Let us forget the A. Last 5 minutes and try again. Please. Meghan shook her head. There is no starting over. This is who you are, and this is who I am. We are not going to suddenly understand each other. Then why are you still standing here? Jonathan asked, his voice tired now. If this is so pointless, if I am so terrible, then why are you still on my stage? She stared at him, and for a moment, something flickered across her face. Uncertainty, maybe, or regret. But it vanished as quickly as it appeared. You know what, Jonathan? You are right. I should not be here. The host said nothing, just watched her. Meghan turned to walk off the stage, then stopped and looked back at him. And for the record, I did not come here to attack you. I came here hoping to be heard, but clearly, that was too much to ask. Jonathan's voice was quiet but clear. You were heard. Every word. But being heard does not mean you were right. She flinched at that, her composure cracking for just a second. Then she straightened her shoulders and walked off the stage without another word. The audience sat in stunned silence. Nobody clapped. Nobody moved. Jonathan stood there for a long moment, processing what had just happened. Finally, he turned to the audience with a weary smile. Well, that was not exactly what we had planned for tonight. A few nervous laughs rippled through the crowd. Jonathan walked back to his desk and sat down heavily. I want to say something, he began, his voice thoughtful. I do not know what happened there. I do not know if I said something wrong before we started, or if there was some miscommunication, or if she is just going through something that I cannot understand. But I want you all to know that I came into this with good intentions. The audience started to applaud, quietly at first, then louder. Jonathan held up a hand. I am not looking for sympathy. I am just trying to make sense of it. When you invite someone onto your show, you want them to feel comfortable, to feel safe. You want to create a space where they can be themselves. And I thought I was doing that. But clearly, something went wrong. He paused, rubbing his temples. Maybe she is right about some things. Maybe I do not understand what it is like to be in her position. But that does not make me a bad person. And it does not mean I deserve to be spoken to that way. More applause. Jonathan looked genuinely moved by the support. Thank you, he said quietly. Thank you for being here tonight and witnessing, whatever that was. I think we are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will try to end this show on a better note. As the cameras cut away, Jonathan sat alone at his desk, staring at the empty chair across from him. The producers rushed out to check on him, but he waved them away. He needed a moment to collect himself, to process the emotional whiplash of the last few minutes. The audience was buzzing with conversation. Everyone had an opinion. Some felt bad for Jonathan. Others thought maybe Meghan had a point, even if her delivery was harsh. Most were just shocked that something like this could happen on live television. When the cameras came back on, Jonathan had composed himself. His smile was back, though it did not quite reach his eyes. Welcome back, he said. I know that was intense, and I appreciate all of you sticking with us. Television is unpredictable sometimes. You never quite know what is going to happen when you bring two people together in a room. He glanced at the empty chair again. I hope that wherever she is right now, she is okay. I genuinely do. Because despite what just happened, I do not wish her any ill will. I just wish we could have had a different conversation. The audience was silent, hanging on his every word. But you know what? Jonathan continued, his voice getting stronger. This is why we do live television. Because real moments happen. Uncomfortable moments, yes, but real ones. And maybe there is value in that. Maybe people at home saw that exchange, and it made them think about communication, about assumptions, about how we treat each other. He smiled, and this time it looked genuine. Or maybe it was just a disaster, and we will all forget about it by tomorrow. Either way, we got through it together. The audience laughed and applauded, grateful for his ability to find levity, even in chaos. Jonathan looked directly into the camera. If you are watching at home and you were confused by what you just saw, join the club. I was sitting right here, and I am still confused. But that is okay. Life is confusing sometimes. People are complicated, and all we can do is try our best to be kind, to be fair, and to keep showing up. He took a breath. So thank you for showing up tonight. Thank you for being part of this strange, unexpected, completely unplanned moment in television history. And remember, no matter what happens, no matter how chaotic things get, we are all just trying to figure it out as we go. The show ended shortly after that. Jonathan wrapped up with his usual charm, thanked the audience, and signed off. But everyone knew that this episode would be talked about for years to come. Not because of anything that was planned or scripted, but because of what happened when two people completely failed to connect. Backstage, the atmosphere was tense. Producers were already fielding calls from journalists. Security had escorted Meghan out of the building without incident, though she had refused to speak to anyone. Jonathan sat in his dressing room, still trying to process everything. His producer knocked on the door. "You okay?" Jonathan looked up. "Honestly, I have no idea. Did I do something wrong?" The producer shook their head. "You were professional the entire time. You tried to de-escalate. You tried to redirect. You did everything right." "Then why do I feel so terrible?" Jonathan asked. "Because you are a good person," the producer said simply. "Good people feel bad when things go wrong, even when it is not their fault." Jonathan nodded slowly. I really wanted to give her a fair shot. I wanted her to feel heard." "You did," the producer assured him. "What she chose to do with that opportunity was up to her." As the crew packed up for the night, people could not stop talking about what they had witnessed. Some defended Jonathan, praising his patience and professionalism. Others wondered if there was more to the story, if something had happened behind the scenes that the audience did not see. But everyone agreed on one thing. It was unlike anything they had ever experienced in their careers. The next morning, the clip would be everywhere. Social media would explode with opinions. Think pieces would be written. Analysts would dissect every word, every gesture, every facial expression. But in that moment, in the quiet of the empty studio, it was just Jonathan Ross sitting alone, wondering how a simple interview had turned into something so much bigger and so much more painful than anyone could have anticipated. He stood up, grabbed his coat, and headed for the door. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new guests, new shows. But tonight, he just wanted to go home and forget that any of this had ever happened. As he walked out into the cool night air, he could not shake the feeling that something important had broken in that studio. Trust, maybe. Or understanding. Or just the basic agreement between host and guest that they were on the same team, even if just for 20 minutes. Whatever it was gone now, and Jonathan had no idea how to get it back.